I had never felt my world break in a single moment until the day I saw Rodney and my two best friends in our own bed. I had come home with flowers and a smile, ready to surprise him after a long day at the office. I opened the bedroom door and froze as my world shattered before me. Rodney was in our bed, naked, tangled in sweaty sheets with Nancy straddling him while Karen kissed his chest, her hands roaming places only I should have known. Moans filled the room, their bodies moving in a disgusting rhythm of betrayal. I stood paralyzed, my heart slamming against my ribs, my breath caught in my throat like I was drowning in fire. The roses I brought to surprise him dropped from my hands, petals scattering across the floor like the remains of my trust. Their laughter died instantly when they saw me. 3 pairs of guilty eyes, 3 mouths open in horror, and me, standing there, burning with rage, so deep it made my skin crawl. My name is Amanda. I live in a small house on the edge of Denver, Colorado. Rodney is my husband of 5 years. He is tall and handsome with dark hair and green eyes. He works as an engineer. He is smart and patient and kind. I thought that he loved me more than anything. Nancy and Karen have been my friends since college. Nancy is gentle and funny. She works as a teacher in a nearby school. Karen is confident and bold. She runs her own bakery in town. We shared secrets, dreams, and late nights under the stars. I trusted them like sisters. I never imagined that they could betray me so deeply. That afternoon, I had finished my work early. I drove home under a bright blue sky. I picked roses from a neighbor's garden, hoping to make Rodney smile. I walked quietly up the porch steps, humming a tune. I unlocked the door, and I called his name. I dropped the roses when I saw the bed. I saw Rodney's face turn red and Nancy's eyes widen. Karen froze, and then she tried to push Rodney away. I stood in the doorway, and I felt my stomach churn. I closed my eyes for a moment, and then I opened them again. I could not believe what I saw. Time seemed to slow down. I felt the soft carpet under my bare feet. I felt the cool air from the air conditioner on my skin. I smelled rose petals and perfume and something salty that came from my own tears. I felt my body tremble. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. I wanted to run, but my feet would not move. I wanted to believe that my eyes were lying to me, but I knew that they were not. I watched Rodney sit up and bury his face in his hands. I watched Nancy cover her eyes with her arms. I watched Karen press her lips together as if she tried to hold back a confession. I saw the weight of my trust pile up on the floor around us. I saw the broken pieces of my life scattered like shattered glass. I knew that there was no going back to how things were before. My chest ached with betrayal. My head spun with questions. Why did they do this? How long had they been meeting here? What had I missed? I closed the door behind me, and I walked slowly back to the living room. I sank onto the sofa, and I pressed my hands to my face to try to stop the tears. But they fell anyway. I felt my heart crack open. I felt a fierce anger rise inside me. I felt a cold determination settle in my bones. I may have lost my trust in them today, but I would not lose myself. I would not be a victim without a voice. I would find a way to rise above this pain. I would find a way to make them remember that they had hurt me deeper than any knife. And I would make them regret the day that they thought they could betray the woman they called friend. I woke the next morning to a house that felt empty and cold. The sun shone through the curtains, but it did not warm my heart. I sat on the edge of the bed, and I pressed my face into my hands. My body felt heavy. My mind raced with memories. I thought of the soft way Rodney used to kiss my forehead. I remembered how Nancy would laugh when I told her a story. I recalled how Karen and I would bake cookies together on Saturday afternoons. All of those happy times felt like lies now. I rose slowly, and I walked to the kitchen. I made a cup of coffee, but I could not taste it. The steam rose, and I watched it swirl into the air. I felt tears come back again. I closed my eyes, and I let them fall. I thought of my wedding day. I thought of the vows that I spoke. I thought of the future that I believed we would share. I thought of those two women who I trusted more than anyone else. I could still see their faces in my mind, frozen in surprise when I arrived at the door. I remembered Rodney's eyes as he tried to explain. There was no excuse that could heal this wound. I moved to sit at the small kitchen table. I should have been angry at Rodney alone, but I felt anger at all three of them. I felt as if they had reached into my chest and torn out my heart. I felt hatred rise like fire in my veins. I felt emptiness settle in my soul. I did not know which feeling was the strongest, but I knew one thing clearly. I would not let this pain destroy me. I thought about falling apart. I thought about calling my sister and screaming. I thought about leaving Colorado and hiding, but those ideas felt weak. I did not want to be a broken woman. I did not want them to see me collapse. I decided I would stand tall. I decided I would turn my pain into power. I stood and I walked to my bedroom. I opened the drawer where I kept my old journal. I had not written in it for years. I took it out and I opened a fresh page. I wrote at the top, "Revenge Plan." My hand shook as I wrote. I drew 3 columns, one for Rodney, one for Nancy, and one for Karen. Under each name I wrote words that I felt: betrayal, shame, regret. Then I closed the journal, and I placed it on the nightstand. I spent the rest of the afternoon pacing the living room. I rehearsed my plan in my mind. I would not use blackmail or threats. I would use truth and exposure. I would show them how it felt to be vulnerable. I would make them understand the weight of their choices. I would do this with patience and precision. Late in the day, I made the first move. I sent all 3 of them a simple message. "I want to see you tomorrow evening at my house. We need to talk." I hit send, and I felt my heart pound in my chest. I knew they would come. I knew they would fear what awaited them. I knew this was only the very first step. And I felt a thrill of power that I had not felt since the day I said, "I do." The 3 of them arrived at my house just before sunset. Rodney stood at the door first. He looked nervous and pale. Behind him came Nancy and Karen. Their eyes were wide and guilty. I invited them inside. I closed the door firmly behind us. I led them to the living room where I had set 3 chairs in a row. I sat on the sofa across from them. I held my journal in my lap. I spoke slowly so that they heard every word. "You betrayed me. You broke my heart. Tonight you will see what it feels like to be exposed." I opened the journal. "I will tell the world what you did." Rodney swallowed hard. Nancy covered her mouth with her hand. Karen's face went red. First, I turned to Rodney. I read aloud the messages I had found on his phone. I described how he had met Nancy and Karen in secret. I spoke of how he lied to me every night while he stayed out late. His eyes filled with tears. He tried to speak. I held up my hand. "No excuse will heal this wound," I said. Next, I turned to Nancy. I showed them the photos I had taken with my phone. In the pictures, they were together in our bedroom. I described how Nancy whispered to Rodney that she loved him. Nancy looked down. She began to cry. I spoke softly. "You were my friend. You knew my trust was sacred." Finally, I turned to Karen. I told them about the cupcakes she had left on the counter the day before, scented with the perfume Rodney liked. I explained how I discovered her secret visits. Her eyes filled with shame. She pressed her lips together to stop her tears. At each name, I closed the book and let silence fill the room. I let them feel the weight of every word. I let them imagine every tear I had cried. I let them face the truth they tried to hide. When I finished, I closed my journal. I stood and walked to the door. "You will leave now," I said, "and you will never come back." I opened the door. I watched them walk away one by one into the darkening street. I listened to their footsteps fade. I closed the door and leaned against it. I felt no joy in their sorrow. I felt only a calm that came from standing for myself. I had taken my pain and made it matter. I had shown them the cost of betrayal. I walked to the window and watched the sunset over Colorado's mountains. The sky was painted in pink and orange. I felt a new day beginning inside me. I felt stronger and free. Thank you for reading my story. Please leave your comments below. Let me know how you feel about my revenge. Remember to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more dramatic stories.